Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, your host. For more than 13 years, I've been handcrafting these sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, I love spotlighting diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world in which to live. I invite you to listen up and change the way you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. Alrighty then, let's dive in. This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where you will learn about absorbent minds and human cognition in a digital world. My guest today is Professor Leslie Valiant, who was educated at King's College, Cambridge, Imperial College, London, and at Warwick University, where he received his PhD in computer science in 1974. He is currently T. Jefferson Coolidge Professor of Computer Science and Applied Mathematics in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences at Harvard University, where he has taught since 1982. Before coming to Harvard, he taught at Carnegie Mellon University, Leeds University, and the University of Edinburgh. Professor Valiant's work has ranged over several areas of theoretical computer science, particularly complexity theory, learning, and parallel computation. He also has interest in computational neuroscience, evolution, and artificial intelligence. He's the author of 2 books, Circuits of the Mind, and Probably, Approximately, Correctly, and the newest, which I just mentioned, The Importance of Being Educable, a new theory of human uniqueness. Leslie, thank you for joining me on the show today. I am excited to learn something new, to be educated.
Thank you for inviting me.
So let's jump into the definition of educable, because it's slightly different than educability.
Well, in the book, it's meant to be a new notion. It's a composite notion. So it's clearly meant to evoke what intuitively we mean by what it takes to be educated. But the whole point is to define these cognitive functions more precisely than we have, say, with intelligence. So it's a definition in terms of its various constituents. So do you want me to just to quickly say what they are?
I would love for you to say what they are.
Okay. So the 3 constituents, very briefly. So the first is learning from experience, learning from examples. So this is essentially equivalent to what machine learning technology does nowadays. That's the first part. So the second part is being able to compose together what you have learned. So string together what you've learned when you apply this to a situation. And this is some kind of reasoning. And the third part, which is the most characteristically human, is to be able to take in information by being told by someone explicitly, by someone who specifies the rules of what you do, like a belief spelled out or a program or a recipe, and being able to incorporate this belief just as if you'd learned it from experience. So roughly, it's we have a capability by which we sort of combine 3 different capabilities and make something very powerful from it.
So let me just go through this one time to make sure that I've got this. There's we learn from examples, right? How behaviors or processes are demonstrated to us. We learn from watching or by doing. Then we've got the ability to string together the pieces of data or information and reason with it, make some sense out of it. And then the last one is the ability to take in data that might not be our first person experience, but assimilate it as if it was.
Yes, that's a good paraphrase of what I said. Yes.
Well, I just want to make sure
Yes,
because I know
yes.
I know I'm out of my element here. So I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying and then apply it to something that is concerning to many people around the world today. And that is the vast amounts of data that we see and hear and the brain's ability to keep up with that data and discern its veracity.
Right. Well, that's exactly excellent question in this context. So, conclusion I've come to in this regard is that once I've written down this educability model, it adds up to some amazing capability for us to soak in information. So we soak in information all the time through podcasts, reading, whatever, and we can link it up to our previous knowledge. We can really run with information we've soaked up. But nowhere is there any capability mentioned by me to here to check whether any of this information we soak up is true or useful. So, I mean, as an example, for example, we watch a movie. We almost don't care whether it's fact or fiction. It doesn't seem to be that important to us. We can process the information almost the same way. So so the way I view it is that our evolutionary inheritance is from a world where the world wasn't trying to wreck our learning. It wasn't adversarial to us. So we could somehow trust it. And so we learn in a trusting way. So this is how the education system works. We mainly learn non-controversial things in school. We believe the teacher and we soak it all up, hopefully, and we can run with it. But we're not equipped at all to deal with information which is just false or prepared by someone adversarial, someone who's really trying to mislead us. So sure. So I think, and I think the reason why we're not prepared is that it's inherently it's hard. That if someone teaches us a theory of physics, we can believe it and run with it, but we can't go out and verify for ourselves because it's taken lots of people with expensive equipment to check it all out. And this applies to every other aspect of life, that we hear things all the time about economics, everything else, and we don't have a chance of verifying it for ourselves.
But you say something really important because when I think of all this information that is coming at us in a 24/7 cycle that is either misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, with the intention of marketing to the public a set of beliefs or facts that may or may not be true. It sounds like, and I could be wrong, that the brain has not caught up quickly enough in its ability to decipher necessarily what is real or not.
Well, yes, but that's certainly true. But I'm saying it may be inherently very difficult to do it because we're just in no position to verify whether what we hear is true or not. We can't go out and if someone tells you a story of what happened somewhere else, you are not going to rush out and check it. So there are inherently difficulties in verifying the truth of what we hear.
Yes, and it's important to attempt to do so, I think.
It's important to attempt to do so, and certainly it's also important to educate us. So that's educate certainly children to be more suspicious, to understand that in school one presumes that the learning environment is neutral or even beneficial. The teacher is trying to help them learn. Teacher isn't presenting false information. But once they're outside it, then the information comes from all kinds of sources. They can't assume anything. And they have to be, cognizant of the fact that this information could be false and prepared by someone with bad intent. So one can imagine, courses in schools on this, which alert people of historical ways propaganda has been used, and many ways psychologists discuss of how we're influenced, how we can be influenced by all kinds of salesmen. So I think population can be hardened against this through education, and that would be some defense.
Well, there's research being done around the world at multiple universities, one in particular at Carnegie Mellon, a former place of yours, on cognitive immunology, like where we are able to build up an immune system in the brain to nonsense, that we're able to disarm bad ideas through critical thinking.
Yes, I'm only slightly familiar with that kind of work, but I think it's difficult. So becoming immune to all kinds of false information, I think, is too optimistic, because we can't. There's no way of verifying what's false and what's true. So critical thinking, yes, I mean, I'm all for it. So the idea that we can be trained, or we can learn to reason better than we do. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for that. But again, I don't think that's a complete solution, because the problem isn't just that we are reasoning in a bad way. So sometimes we do reason and make mistakes. So correct that would be good. But I don't think it's just a failure in our reasoning that we accept false information. No.
For there are a myriad of reasons why we embrace the information, right?
Right. So I think belief in reasoning is good, but it only goes so far in addressing this problem.
But I think that then this speaks to another aspect of cognition, and that is humanity's desire to belong and to connect, right? To be part of something. So we might take in information that may or may not be true in pursuit of being a member of some tribe.
Right. So this is one of the ways psychologists tell us that we tend to decide which belief to believe and which one not to. So I think people have to be educated into these tendencies humans have to make decisions, and so to be more aware of our possible failures.
Let me ask you a bit about artificial intelligence and how it helps us to better understand human cognition, because a lot of people are very frightened of it. I think it's pretty wonderful myself, right? It's only as good as the user, really.
Yes. So from this perspective, so if I'm interested in having a theory of cognition, then taking a computer science perspective, I think, it really gives a new opportunity, because with the computer science perspective, you have some idea and you may be able to realize it as a system. So, for example, a long line of work in machine learning has given us these large language models, and now these things you can test. You can see how they behave. You can make your own opinion, but they're out there. Whereas if I give you some general theory of philosophy or psychology, maybe it's hard to know what the takeaway message is. But with computer science, in some sense, the standards are high in that you have to define pretty precisely what you're going to do. Okay, so for example, these large language models are trained with learning from examples paradigm. And so it demonstrates the power of that paradigm. And you can draw your own conclusions, how much it achieves, what more is required. But computer science is very powerful because it makes it much more specific and well-defined the various notions which cognitive scientists have in the past described a bit more generally.
All right, when we talk about how we humans behave, if we take this computational approach to understanding human civilization, what does that look like in your world, in a layperson's description?
Well, at a general level, so the hypothesis described in the book is that this educability is what is the main cognitive thing which differentiates us from other species, and that it's a capability we've had for a very long time, probably hundreds of thousands of years or since humans evolved, but it just took a very long time to become useful. It's a kind of property which so clearly it's powerful to be able to tell people my beliefs once there's some useful beliefs to be transmitted. So it's like a snowball rolling. It took a long time for powerful human knowledge like science to be discovered and then to be propagated using educability. So at a very high level, I would say that we had this cognitive ability for a long time, but then just in the last few centuries, this ability suddenly exploded. And the discoveries made by individuals could be communicated, and rapidly on top of it, the civilization and knowledge could explode in the way it has into the very deep scientific theories.
So, if we look at ourselves as humans in relationship to other mammals, where we possess identical systems, right, in the body, but the one thing that is the human exception, this is what I'm hearing you say, is this sense of educability, which ties into the ability to reason, to discern, to have critical thinking, and to process data.
Well, but all this needs to be defined a bit more precisely
Please do.
to satisfy me. So I think the point is that many of these single phrases, other species already have. So it's very hard to come up with a single phrase which makes humans unique. This has been well known. So Darwin complained. So I think Darwin's conclusion was that we're just different in degree to other animals, if you describe any one feature. So in the formulation of the book, there are these basic capabilities like learning from experience that's been around for hundreds of millions of years in the animal kingdom, and also training together, say, two different things you've learned. That's also essential for animals. They learn what kind of food not to eat, and then they don't eat it. It's some sort of training. But you have to somehow formulate this, which is common to other animals. But then on top of this, I think the main addition which humans have added is this ability to communicate beliefs they've learned themselves or they've heard from other people. So basically, transmitting beliefs in some senses is the new addition, but it only makes sense if you incorporate this in this broader context of what animals could already do.
We're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to continue the conversation about the transmission of beliefs, because I think this is really interesting and right in keeping with what we're talking about in the discussion about, how do we discern fact from fiction, right? Or is it so much that we want to believe and therefore we do?
Okay.
Yeah. So let's take a break. But before we do, I want to send our listeners to Google Leslie Valiant to learn more about the importance of being educable, a new theory of human uniqueness, and the other books that he has written. Here comes the pause. We'll be right back. Wait. Before we break, I want to remind everyone about the joy of Good Hair Days. I'm excited to share how I get happier hair with you. Way offers a complete hair care solution that promotes fuller looking, healthier feeling, and happier hair for everyone. Fine, medium, or thick hair, Way has got you covered. From volume and shine to deeply hydrating, Way helps you find your way to good hair every single day. I use a blend of several Way product combinations in rotation to make my superfine postmenopausal hair look and feel at its best. My favorite Way product is their leave-in conditioner that makes my hair feel soft, silky smooth, and smelling like I'm on vacation. Not sure what your hair type is? Take Way's hair quiz at way.com to find out. You can also stock up and save with 32-ounce shampoo and conditioner refill pouches. Treat yourself to great self-care and good hair days with Way's best-selling products. Get on your way to happier hair today. Wash your way to healthier hair with shampoos and conditioners made just for you. Go to theouai.com and use code HH for 15% off your entire purchase. That's theouai.com, code HH. Now let's take that pause. We'll be right back. Each day we have the intellectual freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable, regardless of external circumstance. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, seek support because good psychological health is vital in the achievement of a happy and satisfying life. Visit harvestinghappiness.com for psychosocial educational resources to boost emotional and social intelligence. Like what you hear on Harvesting Happiness? Sharing is caring. Pay it forward by spreading the word to your community and through social media. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes from wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. And we're back with Professor Leslie Valiant exploring absorbent minds and human cognition in a digital world. Let's get back to the conversation. So Leslie, let's talk a little bit about the transmission of beliefs, that how we come to believe in something and how our morals and values are developed by our environment or perhaps by information that may or may not be accurate.
Okay.
So we have, for the past several months, we've been focused a lot on cognitive immunity and mental immunity, or cognitive immunology and mental immunity, in terms of disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, and media literacy. And one of the fellows that we had interviewed was a professor in the Netherlands who was studying the witch trials from the 1600s in the Netherlands, talking about earworms, mind bugs, and things like this that are propagated and then end up really exploding and becoming something when in fact they're not real.
Right. So I've looked a bit at in that direction, at human sacrifice. That apparently it happened on every continent and in different ways. So on different islands in the Pacific, they all had totally different forms. And of course, this is something which is totally rejected now. But this suggests to me that there's no end to what beliefs people are willing to take up, and that we've got absolutely no protection against beliefs which are bad for us and things which future generations totally reject as being utter nonsense. So I think we've got absolutely no guarantees that we're on some upward slope where civilization our beliefs will get better and better.
Ouch.
It's a serious problem.
That's scary. It is a serious problem.
It is. Yes.
Yeah. The spread of bad ideas is not going away anytime soon. But when thinking about the earlier part of our conversation, in that sense of belonging or connection or being part of the tribe, is there a reason to think that the notion of the us versus them actually is what creates or supports or fosters that sense of belonging to something bigger than ourselves, that we've got this clan that believes this way, the other clan believes another way, which only reinforces the connectivity or the glue between this one group?
Well, the theory you're describing may be true, but I think it's not essential. I think if you just hear the same belief over and over again in your clan, you're likely to believe it, irrespective of what the other clan believes. So I think much simpler things that our basic learning algorithms observe the statistics of the world. If a certain fruit tree gives you nice fruit every year, you'll believe in it. That's what evolutionary ancestry gives us. And so if we see something frequently, we'll believe it. And apparently, if you tell me something, then I'll tend to believe it as if I've seen it. As if I've seen it 10 times. And if you say you see it 10 times, I'll believe you without in the absence of any other information. So we seem to be ready to soak up beliefs, information all the time. We're too good at soaking up beliefs, I think, to question them.
I was just going to ask you, is that because of the nature of the brain, in the sense that because it's a sponge where it's constantly taking in, there are no bumpers, right? Or speed bumps to the information as it's coming in?
Right, because usually it's very important to us to be able to pick up the most recent information to see how the world has changed. So it's very good for us to be able to learn the statistics of the world, because that's provides a chance for us to survive. If we didn't evolve in a very adversarial world where people or other species were trying to destroy our information to really wreck our ability to learn, then this is a new world for us, where people are preparing information for all kinds of reasons.
I don't think that the climate in the world is such that society wants to prevent us from learning. It's more about manipulating the information that we're being presented with to sway ourselves to go one way or the other. Right? It's not trying to restrict information, it's trying to manipulate it.
Yeah, but I think one can draw a conclusion between someone just trying to misrepresent one fact, So that they buy this thing because this is good and it's not really good.
Yeah.
From a more concerted effort, which you see in propaganda, where they really try to a more systematic way to change your beliefs about some very broad aspect of life, where they are trying to change your learning process, not just in one instance, but the whole way a process is going. They understand that you're going to see many things, and the many things they present to you are all consistent with the false belief they're trying to persuade you of. So it's a more concerted effort to change your belief system than just lying about an individual situation.
And in a certain sense, that has not changed very much in the last couple hundred years, right? I mean, that people have always wanted to manipulate or sway the public to go one way or the other. So that hasn't changed. It's just that the machines are capable of doing it faster and more furiously.
Well, that's certainly true. But I think there were more sources of information which we regarded as trustworthy. There were fewer sources of information. Maybe there were a few newspapers, and maybe people understood that these different newspapers had different political leanings. But there were these newspapers that were generally understood what limits they worked under. So it's not that suddenly you were presented with information where you had no idea where it came from, for what purpose. So it was more where you had sources of information which you had some understanding of.
Yeah.
Okay, so you maybe chose between 3 different newspapers to read in your town, and you roughly knew what to expect from them.
I see your point. And here we have now vast amounts of information coming, some for free, some coming through various streams on social media, others coming behind a paywall, right, that you're actually paying for, which
Right.
The concept of paying for the truth is a bit problematic, right? It's like, how do you figure out where to draw the sources and connect the dots and create some thread that makes sense?
Yes.
Tell us. If you know, share the secret, because this is something I think about.
Yes, I mean, as far as possible solutions, I think certainly one approach is just to harden individuals against the onslaught of this information. But another one, maybe addresses your problem, is that we should think of, instead of having these many institutions which provide different kinds of information, we do need some sources which we regard as trustworthy. Okay,
Yeah.
And they would be made trustworthy maybe because they're organized inherently. They represent, say, both major parties in the country. Okay, so the idea that each party should present its information in its own way randomly, isn't so good because people just don't know how to add it up. But there should be some responsible people who make sure that there's some organizations where a voter can come to if they want to find out information about some controversial topic. And they've got some assurance that, in fact, say both political parties have had a say in how this information is presented. That gives some trust. Okay, so I think you need institutions which, by their composition, are worthy of trust because their composition ensures that at least both sides have had a say in.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have that at the moment.
No, I don't think we do either. But in theory, it's the right approach. And but then is it that the truth becomes true by mutual consent, by agreement?
It's a negotiated position,
Yes.
but it may just be that the two sides are presented next to each other. But even the two arguments being presented, say, in the same program is, in a discussion, is much more valuable than you tuning into something at one extreme and tuning into something else at the other extreme and almost got no idea what to make of it. So I think the having some interactive discussion of the two positions is much more valuable.
And I do think at one time that was present in American news. Wasn't it the fairness doctrine that was then done away with? We will not name the presidency during which that was banned, but it did exist.
Exactly. I think it was very valuable.
I think so too. And when that went away, and the fairness doctrine, for those who don't know what it is, it was that if somebody presented one view, let's say in the political sector, that it was the other side got the opportunity to refute or support its position, which makes perfect sense, right? You hear it out, and then you make your own decision.
Right, but you have to present the arguments together. Yeah. So another example of an institution which is, by its definition, has its trustworthy aspect is the Congressional Budget Office. So the U.S. Congress is a pretty, we know a lot about that. But for them to be able to figure out what the budget consequences are of some proposed legislation, they do go to some group of people who they both sides trust.
Yes.
Because of the way it's combined. So I think these organizations which are made trustworthy by virtue of the composition, by virtue of how they're composed, how they represent the different viewpoints.
I like where you're going with this, because it also makes sense that, like, when Congress goes to run these budgetary scenarios, they're actually using a computational model to source or suss out scenarios. If we do this, this, and this is what we're going to end up with. Right,
but there are lots of answers they can get depending on their political leanings, and they need to agree on. And they use this technique to get some agreed number.
This is great, and this is actually, to me, very, very helpful. Right, it's using the best of technology and then the best of humanity to try and create a neutral or verifiable source that we could say, okay, we may not agree 100%, but we know that the facts are there.
Well, we know that the result is arrived by some negotiation between the two sides.
Yeah, some version of the truth, some shade of gray that they both can agree upon.
Yes, exactly.
So what can we as an individual, as a human, hope for to remain educable? Like, what can we do to keep our minds and our hearts open to lifelong learning, to wanting to and to aspire to grow and to learn more? Because at a certain point, somebody might say, you know what, I've had enough. I can't listen to anything more.
Well, I think I think most people do listen all the time, right? We're on our cell phones all the time. We listen to podcasts, watch movies. So we certainly, people seem to receive information readily and happily. If you're asking how can we make sure that the information we listen to is somehow more useful to us and makes us better, then that's a more difficult question. So how do you encourage people to listen to things which are new to them, take them to new areas? I don't have a good solution to that. But your question actually reminds me of one issue which I do raise in the book, is that if educability is our ability to process information in these ways, which we use in education, then a good question is whether can it be enhanced by some educational process. So maybe early childhood education does it already. I don't know.
Yes, it may. In some cases.
Yeah. But since for this notion of educability, there's a more precise definition, one can do potentially. There's a chance of asking this question in a more scientific way, and maybe we can make ourselves better at educating ourselves. Maybe we can learn faster. This is an open question. I don't know, but I think this framework in the book, I think, gives an approach to trying to answer this more scientifically than hitherto. Okay, people talk about learning to learn, but no, we don't know exactly what that means.
Well, I think the echo chamber, because we get comfortable with the information that we choose to believe, right? So then we start living or occupying this echo chamber space where there's not really new information coming in. So maybe it is the stepping outside of the comfort zone with the open mind that then allows it to get in to our brains or our minds more easily. I don't know. I think it's a question for people. Like, how do you remain educable?
Right, but it doesn't have to be in a controversial area. So educability also means just trying to learn something new to you which is quite difficult to learn, that it takes effort and time. You have to devote time to it. So what makes someone do that is another question. I mean, how to deal with controversial matters? Yes, I mean, that's a different question.
Well, and it's a pressing one for our world today, but at the same time, maybe if it's applied to something more simple, like how do we learn to do a new activity, something that we're curious about, that allows us to grow on one side, that we then get the brain working in a way where other things become more curious and we're more open to it. Like the portal is what seems easier first.
Yes, so you're asking how could we encourage, how could we make ourselves more open, more wanting to learn, more challenging things, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. So one question is whether we can enhance our abilities to learn challenging things, but another one, which you correctly raise, is that there's also the issue of one's desire. Do you want to do something?
Yeah.
Besides your ability to do something, it takes some desire to do it. So that's a different question. Yeah. So I don't have a good answer to that now.
Yet. Maybe your next book.
maybe.
We'll tap into that portion of the brain where motivation and action can be synthesized, because that's a challenge, right? Oh, I would love to learn how to play the guitar, for example. I'm just making it up. I don't know how to play the guitar. And then what would it take for me to actually go do that? Sure.
But you can ask the same question, of course, about the education system. So one question is, can we improve the education system so kids learn better, more effectively? But of course, a big part of that is motivation. Okay, so how to motivate them is a separate aspect of the question from just teaching them better, for example.
Well, I think keeping kids in their seats all day is probably not a very good way of them synthesizing and assimilating information, right? Like to say you have to sit at your desk and focus on the teacher, because that's not really how learning occurs.
Right. So these motivational aspects, sure, are fundamental as well. Yes.
I mean, you're a professor and you're teaching loads of young adults. I mean, and what do they say? Do you ever pose this question to them? What would it take for you to be excited about learning or be able to absorb what is being taught in a better way?
No, I haven't asked them that, no. But it's clearly, so I think we pursue education we could think more carefully about how we're pursuing education. That's also part of the point of doing, of formalizing educability, that at the moment, the education system is very much best practices kind of enterprise. Yeah. No one pretends it's based on some scientific principles, and it could be more based on scientific principles. But certainly, and the scientific principles could involve our basic intellectual algorithms for taking in information, but another aspect is motivational, which is a different game. But the two are both important, I think.
Well, maybe it's about the reward center of the brain getting its hit of dopamine, right? Which is that feel-good hormone. So once you are doing that, then there's motivation because we want more of that, right? Like we humans, we're pleasure-seeking missiles. Anything that will bring us pleasure, we want more of it and lots of it.
Right, but then the education setting question is, will you just become an entertainer, or do you also educate?
I think you can do both.
Yes, but it's hard.
I mean, the best professors that I had at university, and particularly in graduate school, were the ones that were fabulous storytellers that had, hooked me in by their stories. And I'm like, I want more of that.
Yes. But I think these two different aspects of motivating people to listen, and actually making sure that what's remembered is the crucially important stuff.
Yeah.
They aren't quite the same thing, but
fact. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, this has been such a great conversation. I think we're nearly out of time. And for those who are curious about this subject matter, I really urge you to look up Professor Leslie Valiant's work. His books, the one we've been speaking about today, is The Importance of Being Educable, a New Theory of Human Uniqueness. If you Google him, you will find him everywhere, as well as his books. And I am so grateful that you came here and could put what you are working on and your theories into a user-friendly terminology, so our listeners could digest.
Well, thank you again for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for joining us on Harvesting Happiness today. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen on behalf of my guest, Professor Leslie Valiant, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day and remember to be kind to one another. Want to take a deeper dive into sound ideas for better well-being? Check out our new bonus edition content, More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness, available exclusively on Medium and Substack. Keep harvesting your own happiness anytime, anywhere from the comfort of wherever you are. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes from wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by me, Lisa Cypers Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the awesome team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guess, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.